the thing that I believe that we discussed the most was the idea of this being a memory piece. So what I'm keeping in mind as we're exploring, the s- the veracity and the realism and things like that, I'm keeping in mind that we've kind of have a little bit of liberty as we're thinking about what she and what would be, I guess, sticking out in one's memory, which I think gives a bit of flexibility. That being said, I always start with making sure the architecture makes sense. So I pulled a couple New York City bus and train stations, which is certainly interesting, just in terms of how these would have been configured. One thing that I picked out was that it would have been, since we're speaking about a separate area, I know, as Robert mentioned, having overflowing trash cans in areas that show that it's in disrepair. For me, even looking at the schematics, it felt like it was in a basement. And even if we aren't giving that impression, I'd like to just kind of have that worn down, afterthought, secondhand vibe throughout. So I have this ground plan with actually a New York City bus terminal, and we have the elements that would sit against the wall, the ticketing office, access to the buses, um, newsstands, access to those different types of things, clocks. So those are the different scenic elements that I want to make sure that I capture beyond what we've discussed practically. I have a very loose ground plan that's going to be contingent on kind of working out with stage management where entrances and exits are. But what is here, and obviously this is a very flat ground plan at the moment. We have the bench, the trash can. I'm exploring the idea of having not just various flats upstage, but perhaps a column or some type of architectural element to anchor the refrigerator on. I have images of what I'm pulling for inspiration next. But the idea is to mimic that bus terminal look with access that suggests that again, it's a transient location by nature. So a couple options to come in and out, as well as I know we had prioritized the idea of projecting that image. There is a projector in house, and just waiting to touch base to really work out the elements. What I'd like to do in an ideal world is have this false wall that allows for traveling. And then we can explore the opportunity of projecting onto a flat, or what I'd love to do is have a ability of translucency. When I was looking at those maps, there was access right to the buses, and I'm just thinking of that dirty, foggy, exhume, gas exhaust type of vibe, and seeing a little bit of light even coming through. Marion, that is not a directive, it's a request, and we'll see where we get with actually physically what this is with rental options. But it'd be nice to just have that idea of that translucency, transient, a lot of those types of thoughts. What I'd like to do, a lot of this will rely on scenic painting, flooring, this kind of tile concrete, where it's peeled away at some point. I was pulling a little bit of the color palette and inspiration in thinking of these different, just kind of a pebbly, concrete treated, excuse me, floor. Again, looking like the architecture is in a state of disrepair. So I just kind of started assembling that. And then the request for the scenic elements, specifically the two-sided benches, it would have been out of wood at that time. I found a vintage picture of a Coke freezer. We're just going to hope that we can find something that at least captures the form of that. And again, carrying that idea of the disrepair and overflowing trash can. In addition to that, one thing that as we're talking about these memory pieces and how much segregation there was that would have been um, overt and subtle. I would love to, as we're looking at these surfaces, there would have been a newsstand, and we might not be able to find that, but maybe we've got some flyers or adverts on the wall. My point of departure is really what would have held up in a memory. And when we remember things, sometimes they're more um, prominent or recessed in the memory due to our context. So I really would love to continue to work as we think about some of the graphics and images. What would that look like, and what would have really stuck out in the mind's eye of her as she's kind of remembering all of these, not only conversations, but what would this feel like in her memory? And again, that leads to a little bit of suspension of disbelief without heavy reality, but just the referential elements that really create that environment and reinforce those themes. Um, and that's it for now.